Hey everybody, Harlan here. Welcome back. Hope you're learning and enjoying and getting ready to make those micro steps that are going to be absolutely essential to getting into keto and and staying in keto and living a life of keto and enjoying it. Because the only way for you to succeed in keto is for you to be able to live this as a lifestyle without feeling deprivation. And that's why I spend a lot of my time coming up with recipes that are so good, so delicious. You'd be crazy to think that you were deprived. The richness of the food gives you a feeling of fullness. You don't need to eat as much. And it tastes good. It really tastes good. So, let's go ahead and get started. And I want to tell you the first time that I heard about Atkins. I was back then a principal of a school here, and one of my teachers was walking with me, and we were talking about weight loss. It wasn't a secret that I wanted to lose weight. And she said to me, "Have you tried Atkins?" And I said, "Well, I don't think it's very healthy." And I said, "Eating all that fat can't be good for you." See how much I knew or how little I knew? And she said, "Oh, no, it's not dangerous at all." And I said, "Well, what happens to all of that fat?" And she said, "Oh, it just slides right through your body." And I said, "How does it do that?" She goes, "I don't know." I said, "It doesn't sound very good to me." And then a principal of another school who was more than overweight went on Atkins. And I remember him eating only meat. Um, he wasn't really particularly about what kind of meat, but he ate lots and lots of meat. He ate lots and lots of cheese. I remember there was pizza night at the school, and he would order a calzone and scoop out all of the cheese and eat the cheese, and that would be his dinner. Um, and he lost weight rapidly. And he went from seriously overweight to a very, very skinny person. And looking at him like he looked like a kid. And then he went off Atkins. And guess what happened? Come on, you know. Guess. That's right. All of the weight came off. So that was my introduction to discussing Atkins and seeing Atkins. But I had the mentality that many people had is that fat has got to be bad for you. I didn't understand the role of insulin. Carbs, pretty much, are bad. And you could scale them from super bad to mildly bad. So, for example, the glycemic index measures how quickly foods turn into sugar. And all foods are on the glycemic index at some point. So, sugar is at 100, okay? Because it doesn't take much to get it to turn to sugar. Interestingly, dates are higher than sugar because dates are so loaded with sugar, they're even worse than sugar. And up there on the scale is white rice. A little bit lower on the scale is brown rice. It's still high up on the scale, but the fiber in the rice makes it convert lower. You know the whole deal. You don't need me to go into that. But everything is somewhere on the glycemic index. It could be at zero. Um, but so you have the highest are the carbs, which are readily transformed. Next is protein. It's low on the glycemic index relatively. And by the way, including with carbs, I mean fruits. And vegetables are also there. You know, some of our favorite vegetables, everything has carbs in it. But some have minuscule carbs. Dairy has carbs. The interesting thing about dairy is, the higher the fat content, the lesser the carbs. Skim milk, high carb. Regular milk, high carb. Half and half, less carbs. Cream, the lowest of carbs, but not zero carbs. That's a technical thing that they are allowed to do because of the government. So their serving is a tablespoon, and at a tablespoon or less, heavy whipped cream has zero carbs. But if you go do what some people do is they get a cup, this is not the case, it's just my bulletproof coffee. If you get a cup of heavy cream, believe me, there are carbs in it. Way too many carbs. It's one of the rumors that are incorrect about keto. It is almost a given. It's what I believed, is that high fat was bad for you and low fat was better for you. And study after study came out talking about the need to get rid of fat in the diet, that fat was the culprit and that fat was making you fat. And it was obvious if you have more fat. And it was obvious that fat raised your cholesterol. And it was obvious that fat was endangering your heart. And the fat was going directly to your heart. And that's why people were having heart attacks. Except the research was not only biased, but the research had been paid for by the sugar industry. I remember when the exposés came out in the New York Times. You see, the studies that suggested that fat was the culprit came from Harvard University. And it turns out that the researchers, the prestigious researchers at Harvard University, had been paid by the sugar industry. You see, all along, it's kind of like the cigarette industry, trying to disguise the problem. The sugar industry knew that there was a problem with the consumption of sugar, and that sugar caused obesity. And being smart businessmen, they knew they had to do something about it. The first, the king of the carbs was Kellogg. And Kellogg, of course, invented basically breakfast cereal, and breakfast cereal was you were ingesting carbs into your diet. You were starting your day off with carbs. And the first thing that they did was that they started research to show how your day should begin with cereal, okay? And that was Kellogg's influence. And then the sugar industry took up on Kellogg and went to Harvard and got these researchers all in line, and they came out, no, not sugar. Sugar is good in your diet. What's really bad for you is fat. Now, the problem was that research had already been done on this and shown that it wasn't true. So these guys produced fake research, and everybody jumped on it. The media jumped on it. Talk about fake news. This was fake news. And it repeated it so many times that everybody accepted the idea that that fat was the culprit. I remember in the good old days that Entenmann's is a bakery that may be in your area, certainly up and down the East Coast. I don't know if it's where you are. But when these studies came out, Entenmann's reformulated all of their products so they could say, now, low fat. And everybody was talking about low fat, low fat. The American Heart Association, which of course got some contributions from the industry as well, touted low fat, low fat. And they started putting their logo for a price on products that were low fat. I have in my kitchen grape juice, which is off the charts on the glycemic index. It's like sugar in liquid form. And there's a little label there, and it says, good for your heart. Yeah, oh, yeah, really? Good for your heart. The bottom line is that the research was biased, and alternate research showing that fat was good for the heart started when the Atkins phenomenon came along. The world began to shift in 2013. First, the British Medical Journal, which is one of the most prestigious medical journals of the world, released a study. Now, to get into one of these things, they have to be peer reviewed. In other words, people who hate your guts have to go over your study and be unable to knock holes in it before they publish it. And this study in 2013 came out and said, wait a minute, the reason people are getting fat isn't because of saturated fat like butter, cheese, and red meat. The real reason was sugar, baked goods, and fake fats like margarine. It turned the world upside down. But of course, when something revolutionary comes along and someone says that a trusted belief of ours isn't true, it was like a warning shot, but without much follow-up. Then, in the same year, in the American Society of Nutrition, another article came out where a respected biochemistry professor said, blaming fat for obesity is completely unfounded, and that our priorities were broken. And then a year later, a radio person who had a morning show had gone through these studies and broke the news to an unsuspecting public that higher fats may in fact keep us thinner. And she cited research that said that people who ate a diet rich in high fats had a lower likelihood of becoming obese. The industry shook, and about that time it came out about that the research at Harvard had been paid for by the sugar industry. Now, what's so good about fats? Fats convert to ketones. The best fats to turn into ketones are MCT oil, or brain octane, which is an ingredient in bulletproof coffee we'll be talking about, and ghee, which is clarified butter used mostly in India. It is butter that is heated and stirred. They skim off the whey component, and then you are left with a butter. The interesting thing about ghee is that it doesn't need to be stored in a refrigerator. Okay, so it stores long term. And coconut oil. And this became the basis of the modern keto diet. Now, keto has been practiced for many, many years, but once these studies started coming out, people said, hey, fat, not as bad as we thought. Tomorrow, we're going to start actively practicing getting more fat into your system. We're going to ease you into it, and you're going to start noticing some changes right away. Fat, it's not your enemy. It fills you up, makes food taste really good. You compare full-fat food to low-fat food, hands down, full-fat tastes better. I mean, do this little experiment, okay? Make a dessert. Go get some heavy cream, add a sweetener to it, whip it up, make it into whipped cream. and go get some skim milk. Put the cream on top of your dessert, or just eat it plain, and then take and sweeten the skim milk. Which one tastes better? Okay, obviously it's going to be the whipped cream. Nobody goes around saying, "Oh, and can I have some sweet skim milk to put on top of my food?" All of the food, the more fat you eat, the better it tastes, the more it fills you up, and you start feeling full, which to most people who are overweight is a totally different sensation. Watch for it. It's going to be real exciting when it happens to you. Tomorrow, Harlan will be back.